Hey guys, Marsengen here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video. And so we've been doing a lot of anniversary guides in the lead up to the anniversary coming to Global. And so we are going to do some stuff now covering the Ultimate Red Zone. So this is the 7th anniversary version of the God of Destruction event. I'm sure you've heard about this. I know some people, when I asked in the previous video if there was any of you guys out there who actually don't really follow JP, so don't really know a huge amount about all the stuff that happens during the anniversary, I was quite surprised to see that there were quite a few people who said that they actually haven't followed it and don't know a ton of stuff about the anniversary. So other than those people, I'm sure you've heard all about the Red Zone, or at least know a little bit about it. So we are going to go through the details of all the stages, as well as the bosses and their abilities. This is going to be different to the normal kind of like team building guide that I do, because normally I do those guides for events where the team is very specific, right? Like it's very restricted. So like an Easy A, you're restricted to a specific category. Super Battle Road, you're restricted to a specific category. But in these, you can bring any team that you want. So obviously there's a huge amount of stuff that we would have to cover in order to determine who are the best leaders. Now, or the best units and the best leaders. Now, it goes without saying, I guess, that the best leaders are, of course, the 200% leaders. Global has the advantage of the fact that we have 4 200% leaders in the game already. Goku and Gohan, Cell, Majin Vegeta, and Captain Ginyu. JP did not have these units when the Red Zone came out, much like last year when we were able to use like the GT heroes from the worldwide download, from the Golden Week celebration in order to do some of the God event stages. Global is definitely going to have a little bit of an advantage here. And then obviously the anniversary LRs themselves, ridiculously powerful and 200% leaders. So those are going to be like the 6 top teams. Those teams with the item usage are perfectly capable of beating this event. Now, if you don't have any of the 200% leaders and you somehow get super unlucky during the anniversary, there are obviously other teams that are able to beat it, but it will take a little bit more trying. You know, you will have to make use of the items. There are some teams outside of the 200% leads that can no item some of these stages, but just like Super Battle Road, I know there's a lot of people that are not really going to care about doing no item runs. So very defensive heavy teams like Hybrid Saiyans with the double tech Gohan leads are going to be able to do these stages, even though you might have to be a little bit careful with who you bring, what items you use, and how you play out your rotations. So we're going to start off with the GT bosses one here, and then we'll do the movie bosses one as a separate video. So you have 7 stages. These unlock over time as the anniversary goes on. This happened with the God of Destruction event as well. Last time we had 4 gods per like section until all 3 had released and we had all 12. So you can see here, you can only attempt the stage 3 times a day, like the God event. You can only bring 1 type of item. So obviously you still get the 2 copies of it, but you can only bring 1 item, and obviously you can bring a support memory, no continues, and then there's a couple of other notes here about some of the other units, but we're going to cover that as we go over them separately. So the missions, for beating each stage, you get 5 gems and 7 of the tickets, or 5 stones. I don't know why I said gems. I only ever say that when I'm talking about other games, but 5 stones and 7 tickets. I did the video about all the different tickets yesterday, so check that out if you want a little bit more information. But obviously these get used on a specific banner that has some GT units, including some LRs that you can pull. And then, yeah, you also get, if you clear all the stages, you get the GT Goku support memory, which I can't even remember what this does. GT Heroes allies attack and defense 10% in battle when there is an ally whose name includes Goku. If the team... in the team, all allies key +1 for 7 turns from the start of the battle. So the GT Heroes thing is permanent, and then if you have a Goku on the team, you get 1 key for 7 turns. Which, I mean, how are you going to be running a GT Heroes team without a Goku? So, yeah, you're going to have that in there, which is good. So, you get that for beating all of them. And we will go through the details of the bosses. So first up is Legic. Shout out to Shadow, my head Discord mod. He's a big fan of this guy. Wanted him to have a card in the game for ages. I guess this is as close as we're going to get for the time being. So, also, I do want to give a quick shout out to Luca Dokkan. He made the thread that has all of these images and all of the info, and he put it together with the help of a couple of other people, EDP, Dokkan, Raspy, Air Dokkan, and is it Matryoska? I don't want to say his name wrong. And then Luke, is it Niente? A bunch of them collaborated on putting all of this information together. I think you can see like Raspy's on the art on most of these, but shout out to all of them because they helped to put all of this together. So anyway, the first boss is our boy Legic, Extreme AGL. Because he only has one phase, it means you can load your team up with tech units and you shouldn't have too much trouble. I mean, the first stage, even on my free-to-play JP, where my box isn't really that great, I didn't pull the anniversary LRs, so I had no 200% leaders. I was able to beat the first couple of stages of both of these modes, so you should be able to take Legic out fairly easily. In terms of his actual abilities, obviously he can't be stunned, he can't be sealed, he can't be attack lowered, can't be defense lowered, and he has a 5% chance to dodge. Now when you see the stats on here, some of these might be a little bit confusing. Like he has 23.5 million HP, but bosses nowadays in the most difficult content, they also have damage reduction. So he has 62% damage reduction. Because 23.5 million HP might not sound like a lot when you see some of your LRs in like the easier content getting crits for like 10 million damage and stuff. Obviously they're not going to be doing that level of damage to him because he has 62% damage reduction. He also has that 5% dodge chance. You can see here he attacks 8 times in one turn as well, although there is a 11% chance he will only do 7 attacks, which I guess is calculated at the beginning of the turn. So this one, pretty straightforward, shouldn't cause too much of an issue. Definitely do not need a 200% leader for this one. So next up we move on to Lord Lude. So he has 2 phases, Extreme Physical and Extreme STR. So obviously you can prioritize bringing like STR and AGL because we don't have any sort of, you know, it's not like the next phase after the first one is AGL. So then your STR units are going to suddenly take a huge beating. Just as an extra note, he does need to be defeated with a super attack in the second phase. So that is something to bear in mind. I know it's not exactly the most difficult thing to do in the world, but units getting like, you know, a clutch additional normal attack when he's on like barely any HP, unfortunately is not going to be enough to finish him off. So for the first stage, he's physical, can't be stunned, can't be sealed, can't be attack lowered. He can be defense lowered. He also lowers your defense by 40% for 3 turns with his super attack. So you obviously have to be careful, as we all know from like Omega in Battlefield and stuff like that. A unit getting hit with a defense lowering super attack right off the bat and then getting hit with a bunch of follow-up attacks can potentially cause you to take quite a lot of damage, so you do have to be aware of that. 40% is quite a lot as well, because you think unit coming into the turn, you got like 300k defense, then you get hit by this, you're only going to have, what, like 160, 170k defense after that, so you do have to be careful about that. Then the second phase, like I say, is STR. When you move into the STR phase, same things, still can be defense lowered. He now raises his attack. It's technically an infinite stack on super. So the only thing I would say about this is you want to be careful about bringing slower, more defensive teams like hybrids that obviously take time to build up, because the longer you take to defeat him, the more damage that he's going to do as he's raising his attack each and every time he supers. So similar numbers both in HP and damage reduction, but again this one should be fairly straightforward. So then we move on to General Realdo. So Realdo has 3 stages: Int, AGL, and then Tech. So for the first phase, which is Int, can't be stunned, can't be sealed, can't be attack lowered, can't be defense lowered. He can evade, he has a 7% chance to dodge. And then he also lowers your defense by 40% for 3 turns with his super attack. So definitely, again, another one you got to be careful of. I mean, you know, as we said, the red zone, hardest content in the game. Getting hit by supers, especially on the wrong units, is pretty much going to be GG for you. So again, this is another phase where you can bring some of the more effective typings without having to worry about later phases, because the final stage, as you can see, is Tech. So if you bring a bunch of Int units to take care of the later stages, neither of the previous stages are physical, so you don't have to worry about type disadvantage too much. So, the second phase, which is AGL, same again, can't be stealed, stunned, attack lowered, or defense lowered. He still has the 7% dodge chance and still has the 40% lowering of your defense. So, basically the same. The only real difference is he attacks more times per turn. He has a lower chance that he's going to do one less attack, so you're very regularly going to be seeing the 9 attacks per turn. His SA chance is actually slightly lower in this second phase, which is kind of interesting. And he does more damage. One thing I should say early on, where it says SA damage, this is based on the calculations without things like your unit's defense and damage reduction and stuff like that. So to give a very brief example, and this doesn't apply with things like damage reduction and guard and all that other stuff is going to be thrown into the equation as well, but just as a very basic explanation, SA damage, if we're looking at this second phase one, SA damage 575,000. What that means is if your unit has 300k defense, and I guess is type neutral because type advantage and type disadvantage is going to play into this as well. If your unit has 300k defense, they're going to take 275k damage because it's literally 575 minus the 300k for your unit. But like I said, a bunch of other factors go into that as well, like type advantage or disadvantage, guard, damage reduction, all that other kind of stuff. But that is a pretty brief explanation of how that works. And then the final phase, which is extreme tech, still can't be stun, sealed, attack lowered, or defense lowered, still has the 7% chance to dodge, still has the defense lowering, but he also locks your units in place. So that's going to be interesting. According to the calcs on this screenshot though, 60% chance to lock one of your units. I think I actually needed to double check. I don't know if it's only one or if it's two or if it's all three. I don't know if that 60% roll is determined for each unit or if it's only one per time, because I've definitely seen, like when you fight Omega in Battlefield, sometimes one unit gets locked, sometimes 2 units get locked, and sometimes no units get locked. So I don't know if this applies to every single unit. That is something I would have to investigate further, but something you have to beware of is this rotation locking. So obviously if you get the wrong unit locked in slot 1, you could potentially take a ton of damage, and unfortunately a Senzu Bean is not really the best item to bring into the red zone. So you have to be very careful when building your team for this particular stage. Obviously units that stack up defense over time and stuff, even if you get locked in slot 1, should still do fairly well. But this is why the red zone is a stage where you can't really bring like floating support units who are not very good by themselves defensively, because if they get locked in place and then get super attacked by this guy, you're going to get absolutely destroyed. So there you go, that is Realdo. Then the next up we have Baby. So I remember when Truth was putting out his original videos, Baby was one of the ones that could be the most trouble because of all the crazy stuff that he does later on. So he's tech, then AGL, and then the final 2 stages are int. So again, there's no STR, so you can definitely load up on a bunch of extra physical units. The first couple of stages aren't too bad. The first tech Baby, again, can't be sealed, stunned, or attack lowered, or defense lowered. He actually lowers your attack with his super, as well as lowering your defense. So it's 20% lower on both. So that will affect, of course, your unit's damage as well as the defense. Other than that, nothing too crazy. 7 attacks per turn, with a 18% chance for there to be a super. Then you move on to the Baby Vegeta. Again, same deal with the can't be sealed, stunned, attack lowered, defense lowered. No other special effects though, which is good. And he is AGL, so he's a pretty straightforward stage, to be fair. And then we get on to Super Baby 2. So he has no special effects. He still can't be stunned, sealed, attack lowered, defense lowered. He does 10 attacks, has a 14% chance to super. He has a lot of HP. His super attack damage is 750k. So again, going back to that basic example we were talking about before, if your unit has 300k defense, they're getting hit for 450k by this super attack. So this is where you really start to see why some of these units, why the red zone is difficult, and why some of these units that are okay in other events just get absolutely destroyed in this mode. So definitely got to be very, very careful about this. This is why Scouter effect is one of the most powerful effects in the game, because super attacks in the red zone will just absolutely destroy you. So then we have the giant golden ape Baby, and this is where it gets potentially almost unfair. So can't be sealed, stunned, attack lowered, defense lowered. Then he does a special attack, which is an AoE. So basically, he attacks... Where's his attacks per turn? 9. He can potentially do the AoE 7 times per turn. So it works out at the beginning of the rotation. He's got his 9 attacks. Well, he has a 10% chance to do 1 less, so it could be 8. For each one of those attacks, up until 7 of them would proc, it has an 18% chance that it will be an AoE. So if you get the worst possible RNG possible, the first 7 attacks of the turn could all trigger this proc. And then he's attacking, AoEing 7 times, and then still has 1 or 2 normal attacks afterwards. So pretty crazy. His AoE attack, as you can see, 300k. So again, if a unit has like 300k defense, then that's going to be fine. But remember, because it's an AoE, if he's doing this in like slot 1, and you have units in slot 2 or 3 who get most of their defense on super attack, then this AoE is going to do a lot of damage to them because they haven't had the chance to super attack and get their defense yet. And then, of course, bear in mind his super attack does almost 1 million damage as well. So there's not a ton of units in the game that are just going to be outright tanking his super attack to the face. So that is something to be very careful of as well. So Baby definitely is going to be a tricky one for a lot of people. Next up, we have the Super 17, our boy. His final phase is STR, and there is no tech phase, so AGL is definitely going to be very beneficial here. The first phase is, of course, against Trenchcoat 17 and Hellfighter 17 together at the same time. So this is the only stage, I believe, in the entire GT red zone where you fight 2 units at the same time. So they can't be stunned, sealed, attack lowered, or defense lowered, and they both have a dodge chance. On the wiki it says 7%, but on this calculation that these guys have provided it says 5. So I'm not 100% sure which one of those it's actually going to be, because on the wiki it says that Super 17's dodge chance is 5, which it says here as well, but it says that the unfused androids is 7, and this image says 5. So it's either 5 or 7. But yeah, pretty straightforward, physical and int. So you can bring like physical, I guess physical units are going to be tough to bring in this because the final phase is STR. So if you're bringing a good mix of like AGL and STR, I guess you could try and get rid of the Trenchcoat 17 as quickly as possible. So then your units will have type advantage over the Hellfighter 17. But these guys, even by themselves, like there's 2 of them, but their super attack damage is 625,000. So even on turn 1, if you're rocking units that are only at like 300k defense and they get supered, you're taking 300k damage. So you got to be very, very careful, even in turn 1 against these 2 guys. So definitely, they only have a super attack chance of 11%. So, you know, you could very easily get a 2 or 3 turns in a row where neither of them super attack, but you definitely have to be very wary of them on the first turn. And then we get to Super 17, who is STR. Again, no stun, seal, attack, or defense lower. He has a 5% chance to dodge, and he absorbs key-based super attacks. So this is going to be very, very interesting. He has absorption and nullification, so very, very tricky to take this guy down. You are going to have to make sure when you go into this event that you are using units that do not have Key Blast super attacks. Obviously, if you bring 1 or 2 who are just really good like defensive units, it's not going to matter too much. But, you know, if you accidentally go into this phase with like almost a full team of units that do Key Blast super attacks, then you are not going to have a great time, because it's basically going to be nigh on impossible. So definitely got to be careful about that. There are plenty of strong units that don't have key-based super attacks, of course. So, you know, it's not the end of the world, but you do have to be very careful with your team building for this one. And remember, he does over 1 million damage with the super attack. So this guy is really turning up the heat. So next up, stage 6 is the Shadow Dragons. This is 6 separate phases. So this one is going to be an interesting one, because the first phase, not so bad, 16 million HP, 500,000 super attack damage, but it very quickly ramps up. Like, these guys have a lot of HP. I mean, it only takes you catching a super on the wrong unit in the like first couple of phases, and it's going to make getting all the way to the end way more difficult. So none of them can be stunned, sealed, attack lowered, or defense lowered, which is pretty crazy. The second Shenron, whose name I always forget, Rage Shenron, he absorbs and nullifies Ki Blast super attacks as well. Then Oceanus randomly changes Ki Spheres, so that can obviously be super annoying, especially when you're trying to set up orbs for the next turn. Then you have the Dragony one. Is he Naturon? Yeah, Naturon Shenron. He can seal your super attacks. One target at the start of the turn has a 40% chance to be super attack sealed. Then we have Nova. Nova has a 10% chance to dodge. And then we have Ice, and Ice can lock your characters in place. So, a lot of effects going on in this one. And we are basically representing all of the typings. So, you can't really even avoid any single typing that's then going to have type disadvantage in one of the phases, because we go through every single phase during the course of this fight. So, this one, you just have to build a very strong team. The best team you can build defensively. And yeah, this one is going to be a tricky one. But obviously, remember, with like the power of the 200% teams we have, you are going to be able to soldier through, especially with the 7-year LRs. But this one, these are the stages where it's going to start getting really tough if you do not have a 200% team. And then, of course, the final one, we get to what is potentially the second hardest boss in the game. I guess depending on how you rate Baby with his crazy RNG for AoEs and stuff. And that is, of course, Omega Shenron. So he starts off as Int, then goes to STR, and then goes to Int again. So tricky to bring physical units for the advantage in the first and last phase, because that middle phase is STR. So, I mean, you can see, even in his first phase, he has a 5% dodge chance, and he does 1.5 million attack on his super. But the one thing that is very useful to note is you can stun this guy and you can seal this guy. So that is where you're going to be able to get some clutch abilities off here, making the first stage a little bit easier for yourself. He can seal you. He can lock you in place. He changes Ki Spheres randomly. He lowers your attack and your defense on super. And he can stun with his super attack. So he can do a lot of crazy stuff to you, but he can be stunned and sealed. So that is obviously beneficial for the long run. This is the like LR art. The bottom one is the first phase. Then it goes on to the STR, Sin Shenron. He cannot be stunned or sealed or attack or defense lowered. So unfortunately, none of those effects that will be super useful in the first phase can be used here. He still changes Ki Spheres randomly, and he also has a 5% chance to dodge. His SA damage is almost 1 million, which is pretty crazy. I read out the top graphic as if it was the first one. So the first phase is 660k super attack damage. So the second phase, apart from changing orbs and having a dodge chance, it's not too bad. It's not locking or stealing or stunning you, which is okay. It's just the fact that he is STR. So again, can't exactly just bring a ton of physical units. And then the final phase, Omega, who is Int, he can't be stunned, sealed, attack, or defense lowered. He changes orbs. He has a 5% dodge chance. And then he has a countdown super attack. So the countdown super, I believe it's always on the second turn. And it is obviously a very, very powerful attack. 1.5 million. So this means even a unit, if you have no guard, damage reduction, like any of that kind of thing, even a unit with 1 million defense is taking over 500k damage from Omega Shenron. So the way you have to plan this out is where his countdown super attack is going to be. You're potentially going to want your units who either have massive amounts of damage reduction, huge amounts of dodge, like UI Goku with the 70%, and just roll the dice for the RNG. Units that can counter super attacks. And that's really all you're going to be able to hope for, because you can't seal. So there are units in the game that can tank his super, even without an item. But this is why in all of these red zone stages, you want to be saving that item for closer to the end, because this Omega is going to hit you incredibly hard. Now, at least you know on the first turn that he's not going to super attack, right? Because he only does the countdown. So on the first turn, you can get your attacks in, start building up some defense. Hopefully you've gone into the fight with a good rotation, because the second turn is where you're then going to take the super. And if you've been able to save your items, that is where you then want to pop an item. Usually Whis is probably one of the better items for the red zone. Obviously Princess Snake is good because it gives you a little bit of HP back as well, but it doesn't have anywhere near as much damage reduction. So there you go. Omega Shenron, the final boss, the hardest boss of the GT version of the red zone. Good luck. He definitely is going to be very difficult, but with the 200% teams, with the right team building, a little bit of luck, and some smart play with your rotations and your items, you should be able to get it done. So let me know what you guys think down below. What teams are you thinking of using? Which one do you think is going to be the most challenging outside of Omega, I guess, because it's probably going to be him or Baby, let's be fair. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.